Susan Brown was online. Yeah, now it's working. So important.
No, it's not even here. But I it was a little bit ago.
Ooh, double chicken. White supper.
Okay, first decided, Cal said he can't come, I told you that.
Yeah. Man. Start it being 5:30, and there is no quorum present for the ordinance review committee, so we will spend 9 minutes and we will go into a workshop. And over to you, Emily.
Okay. So the first thing we can start with was I drafted a contemplated parking schedule.
She didn't like the
You want notes on this or just-
notes. It would be fine.
So we looked at some examples at the last meeting and kind of come up with ideas to do, you know, short and sweet as possible, while taking into consideration, you know, there might be other uses that aren't listed on here. So following the example that's in the land use matrix, we have that, you know, use is similar to something that's required by the planning board, use is similar to something that needs a permit from the CEO. I had added at the bottom, just in other uses, sufficient spaces to accommodate the normal parking demand as determined by the planning board. But the rest of this schedule basically comes from the International Zoning Code. And then, as Carl had talked about at the last meeting, was about stall width. So I took, here I added this 2.3.2, which just says the minimum size of parking spaces shall conform to the requirements under site plan review. And then the rest of this is actually from the Booth Bay ordinance. It says that except that at least 20% of the spaces shall be a minimum of 10 feet wide and 20 feet long, unless the planning board finds that it is clearly demonstrated that smaller parking spaces are appropriate. The larger spaces shall be identified by appropriate signage or pavement markings. So, Carl, to your point, you know, there are some spaces, such as in our ordinance, where I think it's a 9x18 stall, that are just too tight for some vehicles on the road today. So, I thought this was a good example of that language that Booth Bay put together that might benefit, and find that happy medium, for our ordinance.
I would just change our parking ordinance, but I think that's out of our.
Right, well, that's what I thought, so that's why I added this.
I like that.
Okay.
Well, we have to catch all of our uses. Well, we need to define gross square feet. I'm not sure what that means.
We could, or we could just put, you know, like total square footage or, so like how I'm reading this from the International Building Code is like for gross square feet would be, you know, let's use a restaurant as example. You're counting not just front of house, so where people are actually, the people that are parking there are gonna be seated, but also any office space for, you know, the restaurant manager, your kitchen area, so it'd be the total square footage versus just the public space.
Square footage need to be for building is whatever, 50 by
Is it,
100.
You're counting that.
currently have so many spaces for seats in the restaurant, or is that digital?
I think that's Edgecombe. We only have just adequate parking in our ordinance.
Played with that idea before. Not first time in that park.
We have just, except in the village one district and the village waterfront district, each lot shall provide adequate off-street parking.
Okay. Why, answer my question first. Why are we exempting the ADUs?
Because that comes from LD 2003.
Oh.
So you can't require additional parking spaces for an accessory dwelling unit when it's on a single family
Even
lot
though we're
that has a
increasing
single,
the
yeah,
number of
yep,
people who are.
yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, I thought that was the point of this, to provide.
So the point of this is to have to be able to calculate your density and your parking reduction. So if we get a, kind of that first part of LD 2003 talks about, density bonuses, if you're gonna build a larger scale affordable complex, that you get a reduction in parking, but our code doesn't allow us to figure out what that reduction would be, because how do you define adequate? So this is essentially, we put 2 per dwelling unit.
Okay, so that would include ADUs, right?
Not ADUs, because we can't count them for LD 2000. So LD 2003 is 2 different things on parking. The first is if you're doing an affordable development, so say you're putting in an apartment complex that's gonna be designated for, affordable.
Yeah.
You get a density bonus, so you can get more units per acre on your lot. But you also get a reduction in parking, so it's basically I think it's like a 2/3, you just need 2/3 of the required parking as opposed to the full build out of parking. And the purpose behind it is that, you can put more units than what is typically allowed on the property, but then you don't have to put as much parking because it's gonna add to the cost if you had to keep clearing for all of those units. So.
But that doesn't seem like makes sense for us to allow additional dwelling units with no parking.
That's how, I can't argue with you on that point, but I have to tell you what LD 2003 says. Right, so the other.
I just want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding that is.
No, so the
case.
whole, so the
Okay.
LD 2003 wants you to allow for more units, but they don't want you to, the new planning theory, if you will, is that the former parking standards, you would plan, for example, if you were looking at retail, you would calculate your maximum capacity in terms of what's your busiest of the year. So if you were putting in, retail, you'd calculate the number of spaces for what they need on Black Friday at Walmart. The other 364 days of the year, you don't really need that much parking. And so LD 2003 is trying to give you a reduction in parking so that you don't have to clear as much land, you don't have to pour as much asphalt to build a parking lot that probably doesn't need that many spaces. And that's also why, for the accessory dwelling unit piece, they figure that you already have an off-street driveway, you probably have a garage, you can find space that's already developed to park whoever would be residing in the accessory dwelling unit that you're building on your property. So they will not allow municipalities to add additional parking requirements for ADUs.
Okay, but you could put additional parking in, even though it's.
If you wanted to, yeah, if you personally wanted to, but we as the town can't require that they
Yeah,
do.
okay. Yes.
Okay.
And no developer wants to, I can tell you that.
Right.
Okay. Very good. This is gonna be fun whenever we get one. Especially if it's something beyond, say, I'm adding an ADU to my property. Which some of this, I guess I could do, even though I'm a third of an acre, and a good portion of that third is turned in.
If
I guess where my camera pad is could become an ADU.
if I start remodeling my grow room and making an apartment there, which I have 25-foot square space outside that door where
625 square feet. and
that's
part-
already got pavement on it. I just did it because it seemed like the thing to do at the time. Why do you come to the planning board?
Did you ask why you come to planning?
I said, well, I have to.
I don't think
No.
so.
If you added another
An accessory dwelling unit that was not built with municipal approval must be allowed if the accessory dwelling otherwise meets the requirements.
Well, I got the building permit, I built a garage and then a roof up above.
Yeah.
I was just curious if I go to make modifications to that room.
May need a
Or
board
this.
Right, a building permit might be necessary, but I don't think we
Well, it's
have
all
to.
inside, you can't see it.
Oh, there, goes right back to that I just read. That is a get out of jail free card, basically.
Yeah, thank you.
So I really don't think it come to the planning board for accessory, even now, an accessory apartment.
I don't
Yeah,
think so.
land, so.
Yeah. More than an acre.
Mhm.
No, I don't have any problem with these.
Yeah, I know, it's
Then
good.
it's a consensus.
Yeah.
Do you want gross floor area defined or some other language, gross square feet or some other
No,
language?
I mean, I guess I'm happy with gross is gross, it's the outside dimensions of the building. I think, I know, but especially if you're in a shoreline stuff, some towns will say, well, you don't count a room if it's not X feet to the ceiling, and the basement doesn't allow you to walk, 6 feet of clearance the
Right.
whole way or something, it's not considered a basement anymore. But other towns don't have anything on that, so it's like, it's always fun if you're going with cubic feet.
No. Define it now.
When I'm thinking of it, I will not be here for the next meeting. I'm camping again. I'd say I can in by Zoom, but this time was my time difference.
Um, we have. Let's see, where is it?
We're doing,
Somebody applied for, I can't remember, if it was planning board or ORC.
That's good.
ORC, I think.
Was it ORC?
Yeah, I think I just saw it.
So we have a definition of total floor area. I could change it to that.
it's total for,
The sum of the horizontal areas of the floor of a structure enclosed by exterior walls, plus the horizontal area of any unenclosed portions of the structure, such as porches and decks, but not including unfinished attics or cellars or areas where the ceiling height is less than 6 feet.
I like it.
Okay. So I'll just change it to total floor area, so we already have a definition.
Yeah, it's ORC, Laura and Mula.
Yeah. Okay, but that's on my extension, sequence agenda, so. I assume should be appointed, I could send her. To the book. Yeah. We still need.
Yeah, still need down full time if I can. It's okay. Maybe another workshop or maybe also I don't know, workshops.
What did you just change in this?
So I'm gonna change on here, under the number of required spaces, we're gonna substitute out the word gross for total, because we already have a definition of total floor area, or total square feet in.
Under 7? Where's it? What
No,
page?
So yeah, everywhere it says gross
Yes,
on here, we're gonna change to total floor area.
okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Is sleeping unit defined?
Sleeping unit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume it
Oh,
means
you're looking at the hotel motel, I'm assuming it means that each room that has a bed.
room rental.
We can in a minute, I wanna go over marijuana if we have time today. So I have. I probably went above
I
and
won't be
beyond.
here for that public hearing, it's all yours.
So I
Whoever's
really,
chairperson, I'll have to, I'll probably defer to you.
I have two versions for you. You tell me which ones you want to advance to the next meeting. So this is the medical cannabis licensing ordinance. And the select board had given to Jackie instructions that we had unintentionally deleted the part in the medical cannabis ordinance where we talk about where it can go.
Well, we just never added it.
Okay, I was trying to be polite. So the select board, it's on page 4 of version 1. So at the top, you'll see, draft V1 and draft V2. So let's start with V1, version 1. So on page 4, you'll see I've added in red the language that we got from, and then some renumbering, the language from the select board, which is limiting cannabis stores to the commercial district on Route 1 from Birch Point Road to the Woolwich Town line. And then for medical, they added that it also be allowed in the rural district from the Boy Road, Gardner Road intersection to the Dresden Town line.
Is that only on Gardner Road?
That's how I'm reading it, yeah. So that section of, Gardner Road, from that intersection up to the Dresden Town line.
We probably should say on Gardner Road, somewhere there,
Yeah,
because otherwise, we haven't, these
might could be a smart probably, they say, hey, I'm north of that intersection.
So how about in the rural district on Gardner Road, beginning at,
Gardner intersection.
I never heard anybody ever mention Boy Road.
I took this language that Dennis gave us.
I know, that's why I couldn't figure out what it was.
All right, so I'll change it to, and in the rural district on Gardner Road, beginning at the Boy Road, Gardner Road intersection, and extending to the Dresden Town line.
Mhm.
So it's only in the rural district on,
Yes. Yep, and we'll make that change to make that clear.
This is only on the medical.
Yep. So the retail, adult use would just be on the commercial district on Route 1 from Birch Point to Woolwich.
and everything else, in the regular cannabis, everything else is in the rural district, so.
I'm wondering if we wanted to reflect that also in the retail instead of just medical. And allow that on 27 too.
I didn't get that from Dennis. I didn't get an answer either way
Yeah.
about what the select board was thinking.
Yeah, it's in the whole rural district, so it's not just from Floyd Road. It's,
Oh, for retail sales, allow all.
I didn't,
that's,
hold on, I have a copy of
I
it.
think that's only on Route 1 from Birch Point to the town line.
right, but then the other is.
The others, right, but you're saying extend retail onto.
Yeah.
So,
I'm talking about the growing and manufacturing, all that stuff. That's
Yeah.
all in the rural district, it's not confined to Gardner Road.
Yeah, like the warehouses and facilities, the retail stores for medical
Oh,
are only Gardner Road. And well,
oh, I see, yeah.
But devil's advocate for a moment, you know how they just cleared that land right opposite Birch Point Road?
mhm.
Mhm.
Does it fall in or out of the zone where you can have store? More of it falls out, more of that lot would fall out of that
Right.
because of the way it's offset.
But I also think, I don't know what, then you have to add in the 1,000-foot setback too, and so I don't know if that property would be within 1,000 feet of Hold on, I can tell
I
you.
thought that's what it was.
A public or private school, public preschool, child, place of worship, a municipal safe zone, town hall.
I don't know. Top of my head, I can't think what's in that.
There's a daycare,
The daycare off of, Birch Point Road, that road, yeah, at least like it used to be.
yeah, still is.
That was. It's got it.
Yeah.
And daycares are kind of one off, it's, because they could pop up anywhere, I feel like.
Well, yeah, they're gonna be, I believe it's. Says a licensed daycare, right?
That just says daycare.
And pre-existing childcare facility.
Uh,
So if you were to open a childcare facility afterwards, it's not, it wouldn't force the closure of the,
no,
yeah,
unfortunately.
right.
It's the one side, it's just wondering.
So as I was making the update in version 1, I started comparing the adult use cannabis to the medical cannabis. And I realized that we were missing, there were some formatting things, and then we were also missing some things. So you'll see version 2, if you want to advance this to select board, we could, or I can just throw this in the garbage. But anything in red is what, there was some formatting things, like we didn't bold for example, just a formatting issue was we didn't bold the actual definitions like we did in the recreational piece, so I just bolded them. I added in, we hadn't included like the title and the effective date sections like we did in the recreational. Distribution of licenses, we had left out, so I just added back in, application will be processed in the order of receipt, including all applicable documentation and certified funds. There was language on page 3, under application, we had language in the recreational about, if the town clerk determines the application is not complete, they'll notify the applicant within 10 days of the additional information required to process the application. And if the business doesn't submit it within 30 days, the application must be denied. There was some stuff on page 4, under section 11, about the select board having the authority to impose any conditions on a license that may be necessary. Also reserving the right to hire a third-party consultant at the applicant's expense to review proposals, to determine the impact of surrounding properties or public safety.
I guess when we did this, we didn't understand, I mean, I see that maybe this whole thing here, we didn't understand that there were a separate thing from medical.
Yeah.
Growing and medical testing.
Right. So I added stuff in, but I haven't then taken back, because I was working on it this afternoon, so I haven't taken it back to then look at state statutes to see does all this apply? I mean, a lot of it probably does, the select board piece being able to, ensure compliance with, the ordinance and addressing any concerns about the operations that could be resolved through conditions, or reserving the right to hire a third-party consultant. I would think that would be fine.
But if you. Is there a difference between growing marijuana and growing medical marijuana?
But what the changes I made are all tied to the retail most of it's tied to the retail establishment.
Right.
We had stuff in here about, cultivation, and I think that is different in my quick bit of research, so I didn't make any changes to any of that. This is more just tied to what we had put in for retail establishments is what I tied to basically the medical dispensary. So, another example is we had put that there would be no adult recreational cannabis businesses be located inside a building containing residential units, including transient housing such as lodging houses, group homes, hotels, motels, boarding houses. So I added that into the medical piece.
We're doing version 1 update, right?
So I'm now just
No,
kind of
me too.
referencing version 2, which has a lot more red to it.
Right.
So version 1 is just what Dennis asked us to do, which is make the change to allow for, to add back in the, location where it can go.
Okay,
But in doing that, I started, it became like me pulling the yarn thread, because, right underneath in the recreational, there was a piece, let's see if I can find it, when it talks about the location, you know, that we would be, limited to the commercial district on Route 1, et cetera, that's where then I saw the piece about it can't be located inside a building containing residential units. So I was like, oh, well, maybe we should add that back in. And then I sat there and was cross-referencing both and realized these were other sections.
yeah, well, I don't know where we got this, I can't remember.
No, that's okay. I'm not saying any of this is as, you know, any sort of criticism. I'm just thinking if we're making the changes, should we make these two?
Yeah,
Or do we
my-
just send the select board what they asked for?
This just makes it format more like the recreation.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
my question is there a difference between a medical cannabis testing facility and a cannabis testing facility
What page are we looking at?
on version 2 on the first page?
So I didn't add any of these definitions. This was already in here. I just bolded the actual terms to make the formatting match what's on. So we had bolded in the definition section of the adult use cannabis, we bolded the term. So I didn't add anything to these definitions down here, Jackie. I just bolded the term and then showed it in red to show that I bolded it as a change.
And the changes, other than making it whole, it's already in there. I get it. It's so guilty, but we've done it before, we've not a consistent format. Like, very different law.
And the one thing that I haven't done to version 2 yet is, and I wanted your thoughts, was we had in the adult use cannabis, we talk about signs, labeling, and hours of operation. And I haven't included them yet because I don't know if that is tied strictly to recreational. You know, for example, under signs, we say that all marketing and advertising conducted by or on behalf of the cannabis business may not involve advertising that has a high likelihood of reaching persons under 21 years of age. Cannabis business shall only be open to members of the public between the hours of 8 AM and 10 PM. So that's stuff that I have to go back to the state statutes to see if that also applies to medical or if this is only tied to recreational. So version 2 doesn't have anything on those yet, but I also don't know. We have a catch-all in here that talks about compliance with requirements of state and local law. So they must operate, meet all operating and other requirements of state and local law. So I'm wondering if that is just captured in that catch-all of it has to comply, or if we need to spell out about signs and hours of operation.
Yeah, but I don't know whether there's anything definite about this. There's very definite instructions about signs on the regular cannabis.
Right.
I don't know about the medical.
We don't have any in medical now. I don't know if the state does, that we can, you know, take and add in, or does the must meet and all operating,
If the state does.
if the state requires it,
we
right, do we need to, right?
We don't need to repeat it.
From what I recall, the both are pretty well the same.
I think so
So you
too, right?
probably ought to verify that.
Yeah, okay.
That's good. I'm in favor of version 2. Select board with it, you know, and you've already done it. It's just making formatting, trying to make the formatting between the two ordinances match, unless they should, they are, you know, different aspects of the same thing.
I'll ask tomorrow night at the meeting too, about the location for recreational.
So the other question I have for you is about timing. So at the last meeting, Dennis told us that we would need to review the draft tonight and schedule a hearing for the August 28th planning board meeting, so that it can be on the by September 1 to get on the November warrant. Typically, I know the process is we forward the changes to the select board, and then, you know, once they give us the okay, we schedule the hearing. Given that we're adding in the language that they asked for, minus the editing that I will add in tonight, about actually stating it's Garden Road. Do we want to schedule a hearing for the version 2 updates and see if the select board can give the go ahead tomorrow night?
Actually, I probably should have put the notice in today.
Oh, really? Okay.
For a public meeting 2 weeks from now. Maybe you got to,
I thought it was 10, isn't it 10 days?
you only need one one notice for, I've always put in 2 notices. I thought that was. And then one has to be at least a week ahead,
Right.
and the other one, well, forgotten, but it
Yeah,
usually
versus
works,
the planning board.
it's hard when the planning board meets on Monday.
And the deadline's early, right?
At night. Susan, can we get it in?
I was just gonna ask.
They're online.
I think that it may be possible, but it's not my department. You're talking about for this week's print?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, we don't go to press till tomorrow, so that's the good news. It is past the normal deadline, but if they usually make exceptions, for you guys, I don't know if you recall, Jackie, it's definitely not my department, so I can't promise it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to do so. If that's the best I can give you, so I can, Jackie, I can give you the number for the right person, for you to call though. If that works.
Yeah. Are you
Good
gonna
luck.
need
Good luck. It's probably fine, but I can't say that it's probably fine. So it's because it's not my. I just don't want to say for sure. So
well, email me the person and the telephone number.
okay. Oh, do you want it right now?
Well, I won't do it.
Yeah. You want me to just email you, or I can? Yeah. Either
Yeah.
way. Okay, I'll email you. Okay, thanks. This evening. All right.
all right, so we'll go, we can get it in.
Okay.
Before we go on to something else, on this location of businesses, what are your thoughts? As I read that, for
Which,
medical
page are you on?
page 6, number 4, since we're gonna go with the version 2, correct?
I've heard
Well, you guys tell me the version.
Okay,
you wanna go with.
version 1, version 2, the same, that section for location are identical, it looks like. It says we're talking about pre-existing places and private or preschool or childcare facilities, places of worship. What if one moves in, should we put pre-existing for all those topics?
if you move in after the business is there,
Yes,
that was okay.
true. But what I was just wondering, would it make sense to put pre-existing for child care facility, place of worship, municipal safe zones, if that should change someplace down the road? Just a thought.
I'm looking at version 2, page 6.
Yeah, it's at the top, it's number 4, it's the first paragraph where it says medical cannabis businesses. That's the same language that we have in the adult use, and I think, Jackie, you might remember better, but I think this language we took directly from the state. I don't think we made any edits to that particular section with
Well,
the
sure.
setbacks.
The state, if it's got all these references.
Right, right, I think we just took the language directly from that.
Okay.
Yeah, and to me, pre-existing, just throwing out everything, can't simply throw it in the ball field.
You want the public hearing 2 weeks from tonight.
Well, that's what Dennis had told us at the last meeting, because I was looking at my notes before I came, and I wrote medical marijuana.
Guys,
Schedule a public hearing on the 8/14 meeting for 8/28 meeting.
Yes, Susan?
hi. So I just texted back and forth. It's Sarah Morley, and she said, anyway, I said, can Wiscasset get a public notice in this week's print? I think it is just one, so I wasn't sure. But anyway, she goes, yes, as long as I have it by tomorrow morning at 9. And I said how I was gonna email Jackie her number after the meeting, and she said, perfect. She said, just have them email me or give me a call, but I'll make sure I'll make sure, as in she will, she'll make sure she makes a note that there's one coming. So I think that you're gonna be in good shape.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan, I owe you one.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, bye.
Just in case there's any problem.
Okay. And then I will email Dennis and I'll CC you, James, so that it can maybe get added to tomorrow night's select board meeting to ask about the location. And then also,
I'd almost go on a limb and just say add it to the recreational, because I think that's how the select board was thinking. Because we didn't want to look like Woolwich when you drive through.
I have to wonder what the ordinance says, or Bath.
yeah, Bath is.
And how many opportunities do you have between Taste of Maine and Shaw's?
Right.
I think that was our thought, was that's why we wanted to allow Gardner Road. I can't speak for everyone, but.
Okay.
The only other thing, of course, is that we don't have quorum, so we can't formally vote to pass it.
Yeah, what
But
Dennis.
The work group
Yeah.
here says send them along.
Yeah, Dennis said just make decisions, and if someone complains, then we'll go from there, but we do need to move forward on this stuff and then LD 2003, so.
Yeah. All right, so we've done that.
Okay.
That's what we do.
Okay, so this should be, the notice should be, a revised version of the.
So I guess proposed changes to the medical cannabis licensing ordinance.
Okay, and this will be available with the town.
Eventually.
Well, it won't go until, I mean, by cause, it won't be in paper till Thursday.
Okay, I've got
Although-
Yes.
Although sometimes they do put it in the online.
online, okay.
So, but shall I say?
Yeah, I'm gonna send the draft to Dennis in the morning. I'll just make the changes that we just talked about with the location, to further describe that it's actually Gardner Road, not just the rural district. And then I'll also quickly look at state statute about the 2 items I talked about the signs and
Could we include in the public notice
leaving.
recreational changes too now?
Are there any recreational?
So that's what James was just saying, is do we make the same change in the recreational ordinance to allow on Gardner Road? We haven't gotten that guidance from Dennis.
It already is. Everything but the stores are allowed in the whole rural district, which takes care of all of Gardner Road.
Except for retail, I think retail is still
Route 1.
Route 1 only.
Do we want
I don't know. I'll go with one. Thanks, fine, I'll go.
Just trying to pull up what Dennis said originally.
honestly, I think the recreational one is probably the more important one, because I have a feeling there's gonna be more of those than medical facilities.
So Dennis wrote, it is the consensus of the select board to amend the medical cannabis ordinance to include restrictions that were inadvertently omitted. They have decided to extend the area of allowable use for medical stores to Gardner Road out to the Dresden town line. Otherwise, the language is the same as adult use. So how I read that was we're adding to what the adult use says, but only to the medical.
Right.
That's what it sounds like, but I don't know if that was everyone's intent, I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't say forever, that says the garden. Against right.
Well, that's what he said, and then he gave me language in
Clarify.
italics of how he wanted it written, which is what's in there. But we'll further clarify that to actually say Gardner Road.
I don't know how to make it all work for this tight timeline. If the board wants to change it tomorrow for recreational, then like, I'd rather have the notice in the paper.
Well, notice is only that there's changes, so.
Changes to the medical.
That one we'll notice, and then now we need to figure out, are we proposing to change the recreational and see what the select board says
Because
tomorrow night?
They're different articles, so we.
Right, so it might, it's either,
Change both of them here.
No, you can't.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
This one, longer enough, has changed. So, I see.
I can shoot out an email and see how many responses I get tonight, and then by the time, are you gonna send that at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Well, not tonight, just so in case there's any.
Let's see how many emails I can get back in the short period here.
I remember the. Select board had discussed this.
I got the sense, although I can't confirm, I thought Dennis had asked by email, the select board. I don't know if it was discussed at a public meeting as well, so
I don't.
Don't quote me,
It's separate
Susan.
discussed.
Okay, no,
That's why I couldn't.
I can't tell you what past that, I have an article 15.
I can,
No.
I have the old, are you looking for the recreational?
You got it in your book.
I have a new book and it stops at article 13.
You're kidding.
No. Well, it's absolute, so.
Do you want the adult use?
Oh.
We combined, in the medical, we combined a couple of different sections. But I think I highlighted it, see a paragraph in yellow. I think it's towards the bottom.
Fix it, okay, no count as commercial district, we run which one over the Welsh town line. That's it. It is only your home. I'd say we didn't get any instructions to expand it, retail stores to 27. That's my feeling, if we're gonna stick with the type. A type.
Glad she's doing all this.
Try.
So glad she's doing all this.
Oh, yeah. Because we should probably all quit by now. Or, yeah, we could say, yeah, we're about 20% done. That's where I am on some of my surveys, so.
I probably didn't see my first draft of it. And then, when I got no direction at all.
Oh,
About where,
yeah.
and anything. So I got one store, and one road.
Yeah.
And one testing, and then, the other one is.
Yeah,
I don't remember what the other ones in the select board were the ones that decided to not have licenses.
Yeah, we could be lying from.
We didn't have a lot of say, I think Dusty, was a pretty big advocate on this whole thing.
It's gonna be the first applicant.
Yeah, he was the one that wanted
Yeah, most of the changes that come, or that I've seen, any attribution, so.
We'll see what happens. I can get 3 people, usually 2, to reply, and then I'm gonna be great.
Yeah. I know this, from other groups, hello, I know you're up there. I could see you on Messenger or Facebook. Okay. Anything more on cannabis?
That's it on Canvas.
Good.
So I will update that in the morning and then send it over to Dennis so he can bring it up at the select board meeting tomorrow night. And I'll send in version 2 to show the additional edits,
What
saying
if they
that,
wanna change it?
then I will make those changes immediately after. Well, we can still time this for Thursday, Jackie, I've got hope.
There'll be an RSC meeting Saturday morning.
Well, that's right, they won't be in the paper right away, so. Anyway, but I will put it on there.
Yeah, the only notice that something's happening.
No.
And I guess if we can't get the select board to decide, then we would just postpone the hearing, and that, we're just trying to meet the deadline that we were asked to meet at the last ORC meeting, which is to get this done.
Do you,
And we all know that good things happen when you rush.
do you envision both of them being, both medical and regular?
So I would say definitely the medical, and then I think, James just emailed the select board to see if we can get a response in like the next hour about whether we also need to add the recreational as a notice, or if that's staying the same. I believe, Carl is, I can't vote, so I'm not gonna give my opinion, but I think, Carl is, we're leaving recreational as it is unless we get guidance from the select board.
Yeah,
I don't know how Don or you're feeling, Jackie.
well, it's already passed, I mean, it's already been voted on by the public.
Right, so if
And
we
then
change
it's
it, we would
just-
have to put it up, we would have to notice it for a public hearing and then put it,
Right,
the reason with the medical that we're trying to meet, getting this noticed and on the agenda for the next planning board meeting is so that we can meet the warrant deadline, like for the warrant to be set, so that the town referendum vote in November can include medical.
right, but what I was just saying, the recreational one has been passed by the town, and you don't really find any mistakes in it, do we?
No,
It's just whether you want to change.
Not yet.
You've got plenty of time.
Test it, that's when you find out. if it's a
Right.
mistake.
I know that there's somebody interested.
so planning board has a pre-application meeting with a potential applicant for medical.
Is that tonight?
Yeah. They're on materials, right?
I suppose, I don't know.
We could get you on the planning board, and since the ORC is a subset, three members of the planning board every town is. I think that wording, let's you be here. He can swear you in on that.
I don't know about that.
We're letting the little things ride here. Yeah, I can, we're gonna have a little hot up. I'm captain of my boat. All right. I want to go back to the other one, I have a question.
LD 2003 final rulemaking. Is that what you were gonna?
Oh, those comments or I'll find it back again. Yeah, the sent out changes.
Yeah, so the state, because they've extended the implementation deadline, they have to reopen final rulemaking on LD 2003 to change the date from July 1st, 2023 to July 1, 2024. As part of that, they're proposing another, a series of further clarifications on some of the language in LD 2003, since they have to open final rulemaking anyway. So what I emailed around, or what Jackie sent around as part of the meeting materials, was the notice from DECD describing what other changes they're making. So we have until, if you would like to submit written comment on the draft final rule amendments, we have until September 11th, I believe is the deadline to submit those proposed amendments
Just to.
or comments. Yeah, just to comment on updated final rule.
Yeah,
The one that
section
said
4B
in
3
favor of goals.
of B excluding lot area requirements. That 3 excluding lot area requirements.
What section are you on?
4B 3B.
4.3B. So, long-term affordability, so section 4 is the affordable housing density bonus. So that's where you can get 2.5 times the base density, and then you can't require more than 2 off-street parking spaces for every 3 units. Under section 4, subsection 3 talks about long-term affordability. And B, subsection B of that is for owned housing, occupancy for all of the units designated affordable in the development or remain limited to households at or below 120% of the local area median income at the time of initial occupancy.
Yeah, that's not the section, because what they want to do is add the phrase excluding lot area requirements.
Huh, well then they definitely cited the wrong section.
4B 3B.
I'll have to pull up. I'm looking at the original bill, so it could be that there's changes, but.
Affordable housing, that's not, like, if I want to add one ADU.
Right, affordable housing development would be like what's being proposed down in the Blue Bay region on Butler Road. You know, a bigger, oh, so,
Hasn't made the paper.
so it's like if you were doing like a bigger development, so, apartments, condos, multiple single family, units, you can get a density bonus because you want to create more units on a parcel. So down in Booth Bay on Butler Road, there's Booth Bay Regional Development Corporation bought like a 30-acre parcel, and they're phasing it. First phase is extending water and sewer, then they'll build a couple, I think, don't quote me, but I think it's condos in phase 2, then phase 3 is apartments, and then I think there's gonna be some single family homes, but it's gonna end up being like an over 100 unit development across the 30 acres that are all gonna be affordable. So they would benefit, that type of development would benefit from that density, yeah.
51%.
Yep,
Affordable is defined as 30% of the household monthly income. So this would apply to something like one's a planning, but
right, or like, yeah, or,
they didn't
I
already
think,
have it. It's already-
Right.
They do. but-
right.
Okay.
Where do we stand on getting all our ordinances changed?
So I gave everyone a draft copy of proposed changes back in April or early May. And if you have any wordsmithing changes, give them to me, but I'm also, now that they're making those changes, I'm gonna wait until we have them in September, and then I would say if we can get everything wrapped up and the ORC can move it to the select board by, the beginning, middle of October, then we can have a hearing, get their sign off, have a hearing in, November, and then have it well done and ready to go so that it's on the March,
Right.
ballot.
Yeah. Okay.
We're plugging along.
I don't have to do it.
Right.
I'm just so happy to have you.
Anything else?
Oh, we can add the recreational to the public notice.
And make changes in it?
The 3 of us are saying yes to both ordinances for Gardner
Which of
Road.
course is not binding until tomorrow night, but yes.
But
We can blame Dennis.
All right, so I'll make the change to the recreational as well.
Right, so that changes that we will add retail from Foyer Road to the rest of mine. So there's two, we're changing, minor change to the useless words announcements. I'm making, first one is for medical, this, I'm making some formatting
Minor.
and minor changes.
No, Article 14 and Article 15.
Yeah. Oh. Actually, Jason was still code officer down there, I heard something.
Yeah.
No details on that. I'm just happy with both the clients have been, no. One's just been, actually still there. Tiny lots,
That's what it's still pending, right?
oh, tiny lot, but they let it go on. This one has some interesting, if this, then you can do this, if that, you can, but they're not performing on it, right? But setbacks and stuff.
We need a code enforcement officer. We have our ours.
Oh,
We
we
need
can.
I
know, we have 10.
Yeah, we've been doing it for now. It's a thankless job. I'm surprised we found one as quick as we did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, before, right? First.
Yeah.
And fourth, some of time. Why you be permanent background.
Carl, if you're getting close to adjournment, I've had my Zoom hand up, but I don't want to interrupt unless you're almost ready to adjourn. Then I had a couple of questions.
You do have your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're getting close to adjournment.
Okay. Did you say go ahead?
Go ahead, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Is this correct that the medical cannabis ordinance was passed without it stating where in town it can be? And if so, does that mean that it can currently, until a change is made by the voters, that it can currently go nowhere in Wiscasset, or that it can currently go anywhere in Wiscasset?
One of those two. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not gonna say.
Okay.
Know which one?
Yep. Okay. But it doesn't state the location anywhere though, is that correct?
Correct.
For where it can be? Okay. And then beyond that, obviously you can't say, right?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
That's it. All right. Any other business?
Make motion to adjourn.
We don't do that. We're not in session. We didn't exist.
In between in and out or don't go.
35 minutes.
Not really enough time, though. I'm all leaving my list, that's not my way.
I hope you all have a good week.
You too. Enjoy. I'll see you in September.
Yes.
Read it in the papers. There's a quote, right? That's the quote. It's review. This building needs a pub next door.
There's nothing filed for the medical cannabis pre-application. He's just coming to get excited, talk a little bit. I met with him and his business partner. And I just suggested it'd be a good idea to come to the planning board for a pre-application, just because it's our first time doing this under the medical.
Right, that's the only thing that is unacceptable.
And then,
Yeah.
and then two decisions that I issued. One was for Amistad and then the other is for Ted Weaver,
We were,
yeah.
we thought we had dealt with a long time ago.
We did, we dealt with both of them in June. But we haven't met since. So even though the decisions were issued and, Mr. Weaver's already building his shed or garage, I have to formally enter them into the record. So I think it's just a matter of handing you copies and you saying, okay.
Unlike my friend who met there, their plan work, it's regularly, they always have business. It's always shoreline. That
Yeah.
actually, as he says, that's all they have.
It's shoreline, yeah.
And subdivision, but nobody's done a subdivision in 10 years or so.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on across from Norm's? Is any
I haven't
current?
I haven't
permits or
heard
anything?
anything. Mm-mm.
Is that legal to clear the lot before you go develop it?
They called me and asked, so as far as I know.
Across from where?
Yeah, I think they got a hearing
Oh, right.
sign up somewhere, the state
They
level.
probably-
for Bruce.
I don't know the
Old Bruce.
acreage, they might have needed.
That's surprising, because that's right on Monmouth's Brook,
Mhm.
so I saw
I
that,
advised them of that, that would be,
A problem.
main Forest Service.
because I dealt with that for the Ames project, I think, it was about Monmouth's Brook, and it's not even close. So I was just curious how they cleared that whole lot.
I can probably find it, but I think there's an email from Bruce when I asked him what happened, because I was getting phone calls.
Yeah.
He said they have some sign off from the Maine Forest Service to clear.
Thank God,
The
the
timber.
person who called was from, Tucker Chevrolet. Now, the deed is something, it's a funny name, it's
Yeah.
one school name. I wouldn't see the person who called was from Tucker Chevrolet.
I didn't think you could just go clear land if you had plans to develop it though.
Oh, there's the trick. They don't have it, they had a formal application in,
Right.
we had a pre-application meeting. No, they can't clear it, but you can go clear any forestry operation you want as long as Maine Forest Service signs off, which includes clear cutting. But Monterey Brook has actually got a survey that's recorded. Because it was Maine Yankee property and it was surveyed to transfer to Milwaukee, I believe, Foundation. And it's, not just the bank of the river, it's back from the river, it goes all the way up to the dam. And there are monuments. They did something. Not easy to find in that brush.
I don't know, I'm surprised by it, because Sumner's waiting to clear his trees out back there.
Yeah,
Still waiting on state approval, it's been,
same
You
thing.
still
across-
don't see approval?
Bob Green's been out
Oh,
for
okay.
6 months, probably. He's had sign off from the stormwater engineer for 6 months, and he hasn't written a permit out.
Wow.
And so if he's doing that for one of our projects,
You're right,
he's doing it for all of them.
everyone, yeah.
So I can only imagine how fed up people are.
Same thing, I came home Saturday night and went across by Birch Point and looked and went, oh, they're
Yeah.
busy.
I haven't heard a thing about that either.
And that's like 30 acres.
I thought it was a big no-no to do that, because you're supposed to compare pre-existing to post,
Mhm.
so like,
Uh,
you're trying
Technically,
to,
you're not doing soil disturbance when you're cutting trees.
it's still a natural area. Well, I guess it's not
Now,
part,
I mean,
natural areas are slow to permits, which I guess, well, the dealership would definitely be a slow to permit.
that was the general idea, was talked about at one of my surveyors conferences, they were saying how South Portland, one already found a way to make it stick, but yeah, it's like, for $50, you can get a harvesting permit for a lot. I'm clear, but if you go in and ask for a subdivision, then you gotta do a tree survey, that means locate all the trees over a certain diameter. And so, are you still on Zoom? Meeting is open, yeah, we do stuff.
Is it still recording?
Yeah.
That's what I did, it's still recording.
Yeah, and it's saying